Welcome to episode 27 of the Stories of Gumption podcast, conversations with entrepreneurs, creative thinkers, and just really, really impressive people. Today's episode is sponsored by Spar-Kil-Kleen. They provide professional and economic cleaning solutions to residential and commercial structures. They provide a specialty in window cleaning, floor care, carpet extraction, and auto or boat detailing. Give them a call for a free estimate at 518-578-2931. That's 518-578-2931. Or you can find them on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at Spar-Kil-Kleen, spelled SPAR-KIL-KLEEN. And I believe on most of their social media they have taken out the dashes, but that's SPAR-KIL-KLEEN. That's Zack and Kate Hoyt, everybody. Great people, fellow Rotarians, very service-oriented in the greater Champlain Valley region, and they do a great job with their business. We are also sponsored by Alexander Edwards & Company, CPAs PC. Alexander Edwards & Company has been providing common-sense solutions to many North Country businesses, real-life accounting, and tax problems since 1920. Yeah, 1920. Exactly. They've been doing this for a little while. They say, bring us your problems, we provide solutions. They're a full-service public accounting firm engaged in tax preparations, bookkeeping, audits, estate planning, financial planning, and management consultation. That's Alexander Edwards & Company, CPAs, PC. Check them out. They have a website. You can give them a call also at 518-563-1600. That's 518-563-1600. They're located at 47 Dock Street in Plattsburgh. Here we are, episode 27. Man, this one is a good one for many, many reasons that I can't even explain to you in this intro. But I think what's most impressive about this episode is just the fact that these two guests just persevered through so much, and they've come out of this whole story that they're about to share with you just on top, in my opinion, as an outsider looking in. This is Zack and Kate Hoyt. They're the owners of Spar-Kil-Kleen, and they share the story of wanting to be parents, getting that moment of, wow, we're going to be parents, and then learning that there were going to be some issues in the development of their child's back, and they had a child with Spina Bifida. And so this has been a really amazing story for them to share, and I'm really glad that they came to the podcast to share it. There's a lot of learning lessons from it. Certainly has plenty of gumption, so I hope you enjoy it. This is Zack and Kate Hoyt from Spar-Kil-Kleen and their story of gumption. Gumption, defined as initiative, aggressiveness, resourcefulness, courage, spunk, guts, common sense, and shrewdness. Welcome to the podcast. This is Stories of Gumption with your host, Ryan Lee. Today, my guests, that's right, I have two guests this time. It goes a little bit away from my normal trend where I have one guest, and it actually has put an interesting challenge on us for mics, but bear with us if you're listening, because the Stories of Gumption podcast has two mics, and we're making it work with three people. So stay with us. So far, so good, and hope you enjoy today's episode. So I am with the amazing Zack and Kate Hoyt, two very close friends of mine of recent, but super glad to have met them and become friends with them. They are the owners of Spar-Kil-Kleen, which we'll talk about a little bit. They are fellow Rotarians. Got you suckered in. I'm proud of that. They're also on the board of ADKYP, the Adirondack Young Professionals, an organization I have a very soft spot for. They do a lot of good work. So they're both board members there. And I think it goes with the theme of today's conversation, but they are the fantastic parents of Macie Hoyt. So, welcome to the podcast, Zack and Kate.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
It's great to have you guys. So I was reflecting prior to this podcast of how we first met, and I think you probably remember it better than I do because I was just like a cloud spin of like I didn't know what was going on. I was trying to manage, I think, an 80 KYP event when I was president, or at least try and be like on top of things, so we put on a good first impression. And I feel like I met you both at an 80 KYP event.
We did.
Yeah. What one was that? I don't even remember.
We were at Valcor for the networking.
The speed networking that you did not want to attend.
That's right.
Speed networking.
Very happy I did now, though.
Yeah, that's a good one. Speed networking. It's like speed dating, but you meet a bunch of different professionals all in rapid fire. I remember that. Yeah. So we met there, but I didn't blow you off, did I? Because I was trying not to, but I feel like you guys were new to the whole 80 KYP thing, and I got to meet you very focused. Well, that's a very nice thing for you to say, Kate. But then I feel like we really connected at a subsequent event, maybe a couple later. Twisted Carrot, is that what it was?
Yeah, it was Twisted Carrot.
Great restaurant in town, by the way.
It is.
We touched base at PBCO when you raffled the chair.
Yes.
And then the follow-up event ended up being at the Twisted Carrot, and that's when we really connected, I think, yeah.
Yes, that's what it was. So it was at that point in time, I remember you said service above self. This is where it's all coming together for me. And I said, have you ever heard of Rotary?
Yeah, and I said no.
So for those of you listening, the fun inside joke here is that at the time they were getting involved in the community. They were getting excited about 80 KYP and the young professionals and all that. But I got them suckered into being Rotarians. Just recently, got your blue badge.
We did.
Why don't you tell people what that's all about?
So, yeah, I mean, going red to blue, it's a couple steps, but it helps you more understand the organization. Yeah, attend a board meeting, and outside of your club, Rotary meeting. We attended the social club meeting in Lake Placid at the Crown Plaza.
Yep.
And then you have to join two committees, one fundraising, and we also joined the civic committee as well.
You're missing the biggest thing. The worst part about going from red to blue. I'm looking at you, Kate. And I missed it. I missed it. I wasn't even there, but
you're not referring to the new member orientation, are you?
Well, actually, that might be. Yeah, I'm missing that too. But new member talk.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
You got to get up in front of a group of our club's 100+ strong, like business, like well-established business people. And to go from your red to like your introductory red badge to the blue, like I made it, I'm permanent, I'm here, I'm committed to Rotary badge. You got to get up and talk about yourself in front of everybody.
Yeah, especially when they're usually of good quality speaking.
Yeah.
You're sitting in a classroom full of people that are actually good at public speaking, not just done it once in their life. So.
I wanted to be
intimidating.
there. I wanted to be there for you, Katie, but I missed it. I heard it went very, very well.
It's okay. I had Matt and Meg right there in the front.
Right there.
Yes. Well, I'm thrilled to have you both as Rotarians. You both definitely live up to the Rotarian values of service above self, and I think that's going to come out in today's theme to this podcast. But we're talking. For all the listeners, we were talking about what the theme of today's conversation was going to be, and we talked about a lot of great things, but really the story of gumption that these two have to share is incredible to me. It's totally incredible. We could probably talk for 3 hours about it, but I'm going to start by asking each of you to tell me what gumption means to you. Zack, you go first.
My definition of gumption, I actually had to Google that.
A lot of people do.
But I would say, grit, ability to keep moving forward when times get tough. I did, of course, I over-research everything. So in the 1940s, during, the World Wars, it was of great use, and circled back around in 2010 and almost peaked again. So, times when perseverance is in need, I think the word gets used a lot more.
It's good for the podcast, I suppose, to reinvigorate the community with the word gumption.
It's a good word.
Yeah. What about you, Kate? What's gumption mean to you?
Well, I'm not 100% sure, but I would say just having the guts to do something and overcoming things.
I like that. Honestly, some of the best definitions I've heard of gumption, I mean, it means something different to everybody, I think, but that's why I love the word. But just having the guts, yeah, that resonates with me. So part of this story, and I think your story of gumption, is tied into another way you and I knew each other before we knew each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Katie, do you want to tell everybody how you actually knew me, but not really before? Like, what was the connection? It blew my mind when I learned this.
At 19 weeks, when I was pregnant, Zack and I found out that our daughter Macie was going to be born with Spina Bifida. And it was, a long road up to delivery and back and forth to Boston and trips and lots of appointments. And then after we had Macie, she was born in Boston, and she was supposed to have surgery, spinal correction surgery right after birth, but her defect was fully covered. So she had a good skin quality, and they decided to let her go home for 5 months and grow and let her little nerves, get a little bit stronger and more bigger than what they were, as an infant. And we ended up having some home services for Macie, and we had this amazing nurse come and help us. And we later, after we met Ryan, we were like, "Hey, we saw a picture of your mom. Is this your mom?"
It was Facebook that did it. It was like a family photo that you had shared.
Yeah.
And we were both like, "I think I know her." And then Katie's like, "Let me see that." And you're like, "I think that's Ryan's mom."
Like, that was Macie's nurse.
Yes.
Like the patient coordinator, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's her title officially, but I'm pretty sure that's what she specializes in.
So she came to our house for a while, once a week, and after Macie was born, and we checked her weight, and I was nursing Macie, and so she, helped me with that and helped us get supplies that we needed. And she always talked about her 2 sons.
Oh my God.
But little did we know that you were one of them.
That's wild. That's wild.
She did a lot of coordination. She keeps everything moving.
That's got to be a stressful time too. I know my mom, after the fact, I reached out to her because my mom's so professional about her job, right? And like, I was like, "Hey, Mom, I happen to know these 2 people, Zack and Macie Hoyt. Do you know them?" And she's like, we were texting, and she's like, "Yes," like nothing else. I'm like, "Oh, well, they're pretty nice people. Like you had a good time. You know them well?" And she was like, not giving me anything. And I was like, "Mom, I am not interrogating for information. Like, I just became friends with these people, and they had great things to say about you." And she's like, "Oh, okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I was trying to, keep everything confidential for my job, but like, oh, you're just friends. Yeah, that's great. They're fantastic. They got a beautiful daughter, blah, 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 blah." And it was just like this connection, and it's amazing. The degrees of separation in this region are incredible. But it was a very cool moment for me to see my mom light up about 2 people that have become pretty close friends of mine, and like, we didn't know each other at the time.
It's a small world.
Yeah.
And what are the chances of bumping into her 2 sons and the area we live? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Small world.
Oh man. So I want you guys to walk me through the whole process. Like, you are excited, you're going to have a kid, you're pregnant, you're like, "Oh, yes, we got it." And then, like, from the moment you learned there might be some challenges, like walk that whole, like, when you learned and how it went and how you mustered up the gumption to persevere, I suppose.
So how many weeks was it, Kate?
19. It was our anatomy check and gender reveal.
Yeah, so at 19 weeks, we found the neural tube defect, and we were forwarded to the MFM in Burlington, Vermont, for updated imaging, 3D imaging, and they wanted to see what kind of skin quality we had.
And when you say skin quality, you've said that a couple times, but you just mean like coverage of the exposed
So
Yeah.
a lot of
defect.
times,
Yeah.
hers was in the S2, so it's on the sacral region of the spine,
Yep. The lowest
just above the
section.
tailbone,
Yep.
and which is a good thing, because the lower you are, the less that's affected, typically. And they wanted to see the quality of skin because they didn't know what they would potentially be dealing with post-delivery.
In a lot of cases, the defect is open and has no skin coverage.
It's open and exposed.
Yes. In Macie's case, it was fully covered and had good skin quality.
Fully covered, sometimes you can see through it. Like, it's literally very...
So they knew this or they were able, the doctors were able to communicate this to you at 19 weeks? Like, you knew?
At 19 weeks, we were told that they thought that Macie had spina bifida. We truly did not get an actual diagnosis until 32 weeks is when we were told that, yes, this is definitely spina bifida and this is how we need to move forward.
How serious is that? I mean, like, at that point in time, like, are they giving you like a pamphlet and they're saying like these are like the serious options you need to start thinking about, or like what? Like, it seems serious to me, but at that point in time, like, what is that? It just hit you like
at 19 weeks, we were asked if we wanted to terminate the pregnancy, which was not even a question in Zack and I's mind.
Yeah.
So we did our own research. They don't really, at that point, they didn't really give us much information. They just kind of said this is what it could be and kind of, moved forward. We went to Burlington the next day after them telling us the possibility. And we just met with a great doctor there. They did the 3D imaging. They talked to us a little bit, about being a candidate for fetal surgery. At that point, we didn't know anything about Macie's defect or the quality of it, or that it was skin covered. So it was still a possibility that we could have done the fetal surgery. And then we had a couple more appointments. We did an MRI, and that's when they were able to tell that she had good skin quality and we were not candidates for the fetal surgery. So
that was the first MRI
Yep.
in Vermont.
the first, yes.
But, yeah. And then after that, that's when they did the 3D ultrasounds regularly.
At this point in time, what are you guys doing career-wise?
I was a dental assistant, the head dental assistant at Plattsburgh Pediatric.
Plattsburgh Pediatric Dentistry?
Yeah.
You were the lead? Yeah.
Yep.
Lead technician.
And-
Before that, you were what? High Peaks Dental.
Yep. I worked at High Peaks Dental for a while and had left there the day I found out I was pregnant for Macie.
Oh,
Yep. And
that day I'm out. Peace.
yes. And went to the pediatric dentistry here in Plattsburgh, and I worked there throughout my pregnancy. And that's where I was until they took me out and I went on maternity leave.
What about you, Zach?
Let's see here. I was a probationary correction officer at FCA Raybrook. Let me see here. I started in 2010, so I was still a correction officer at that time. I hadn't made the transition out to the warehouse yet, right? Or was I?
You were in the warehouse.
I was in the warehouse. So I was a correction officer for 3 years, and then I took a appointed position you have to apply for. You're still a correction officer. I was on the disturbance control team and also ran a food service warehouse. So all the food that was procured for the correctional institution, we would receive it and move it up to the kitchen in cycles. That was pretty much my job.
Interesting. Okay, so you're going through all of this. You got those careers lined up. They're going well, I assume.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens next? Like, how'd the thing keep progressing? I imagine your stress level, your cortisol level is starting to rise a little bit from the nerves of what's going to happen.
Oh yeah.
It was definitely nerve-wracking. I think for me, it was the unknown.
That's worse than knowing.
Yeah. Well, definitely. First,
I
the
agree.
knowing, the finding out that I took very hard. I was carrying this tiny little child that I was supposed to keep safe, and she had this defect that there was nothing I could do. So that weighed really hard on me. I kind of felt like it was maybe my fault or something that I didn't do right. So it took a while to overcome that. But then it was either I had two decisions. I could mellow in my sorrow and be upset and cry every day over the situation, or I could just arise above it and know, like, all I can do is make the best out of this. And I have to be positive for my child and not, let it beat me up, or it's going to beat her up. So it took me a little while to be okay with it, but
I can't even imagine.
I think it took us both a little while.
That's gumption.
It was a lot of weight at the time,
it was.
but like she said, they didn't give us the actual diagnosis until like 32 weeks. So we were dealing with a neural tube defect, but we didn't know what we were technically facing until the end. We had an idea. Like, the term had been tossed around a couple times, but they wouldn't give us a definitive, this is what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
They were dealing with, come on down for an MRI, because they didn't want Vermont's MRI in Boston. And that's where we wanted to have the surgical correction done because of the support network. So that we had to go down there for how many MRIs? She's now claustrophobic, by the way. That wasn't a thing beforehand.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
She has to be sedated for MRIs now.
Wow.
Not that she wanted the whole public to know that, but she spent enough time in the tube that it didn't bother her. I would go in and get in the gown and sit next to her and hold her hand when they'd let me.
I believe it.
But she spent a lot of time, and to do a fetal, they'll do, like, what is that they put on you? It's almost like a weight over your.
Oh, so like the claustrophobia is already building because you got this weight.
It's like a
cloth on you.
It's
To protect from. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And then
Interesting.
Macie had to be
the human body looks very interesting.
It is. Yeah. To see like to see Macie through the MRI. It's pretty cool.
We have a lot of imagery that a lot of people don't get to have. We have 3D MRI, 3D sonogram.
We have all of the
ultrasounds
CDs of the MRIs.
And MRIs. I'll have 3 forms of imaging. We almost knew what she looked like before we had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was pretty neat. But it was definitely a long road, but it was well worth it.
So I don't want to skip anything that might be important, but I'm assuming we can jump to due date now, or she's about to be born, or was there anything else that happened leading up to it that was
basically it? Just a lot of appointments back and forth to Boston, a lot of MRIs, just planning, the birth and what was to come after she was born. I was actually scheduled at 39 weeks in Boston to have a C-section.
Mm-hmm.
I was being seen here by Dr. Menser 3 times a week. They were monitoring me.
You say here, CVPH?
Yep.
In Plattsburgh?
Yep.
Okay.
The office is now closed. She runs her own office now. But
Yep.
I was being seen there 3 times a week, and I was scheduled for one morning for an appointment. And
Because of your contractions, right?
Well, it was
on the monitor before we.
Yeah. And I told Zack that morning, I'm like, something just doesn't feel right. I'm like, there's something going on. And on the way to the hospital, I'm like, I really wouldn't be surprised if we end up going to Boston today. And he's like, what? And I was I had turned 37 weeks that day. And he's like, no, we've got 2 more weeks before the C-section. And I was like, no, it's just something is different. So they, yeah.
I'm looking at you two, look at each other back and forth. I'm like,
Something
this
was
seems
different.
like it was a little nerve-wracking.
It was. So we got there and we went through the, same routine as we did the 2 days prior, and they hooked me up to the monitor, and the nurse came in and she looked at me and she's like, are you feeling okay? And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, honey, you're having really strong contractions right now. And I was like, I thought I was, but I never done this before. I didn't know what to expect or what I was feeling.
You tell me what it feels like.
Right. So she told me, she's like, we're going to do an exam. We'll check everything out. And sure enough, Dr. Menser came in and did her exam, and she left the room. And I told Zack, I'm like, I think we need her to come back in. So he went and got her, and she came back in, and I told her, I'm like, there's just something not right. I think something happened. And she checked me again. She's like, oh yeah, you're right. Your water is broke. And looked at Zack. She's like, you guys are heading to Boston right now.
So to back that up, when she turned and said to me, you're going to Boston now. So throughout this process, we were told not to stop ever if anything happened until we hit Dartmouth. And the reason for that isn't because Vermont isn't capable. Her brother actually works for FACT, or the old FACT, which is now what? It says a different abbreviation, but it's a rolling ER. Mm-hmm. And they can get you there, but it's a process to get everything going.
Okay.
And if I could make it to Dartmouth, they can get me a delivery team from Boston to Dartmouth Hitchcock Hospital.
Oh, wow.
So if I could get to Dartmouth, the outcome of our daughter was better.
Seems like that's a really, as someone who hasn't had a kid, it seems like that's a really interesting dynamic of like the whole planning a birth, like where you're going to have the birth, but also like recognizing like the expertise of the facility, but also the travel considerations. And like you guys you both went into this knowing that this could happen.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
It could be last minute, and we're driving to Boston.
Like I said, we had a C-section scheduled for 29 or 39 weeks. Yep. Never would have thought Macie would have come on her own, but as Macie is here now and goes upon life, Macie does everything in her own time. She does what she wants. We always make a joke like, it's Macie, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
So
definitely against the grain.
Yeah, definitely against the grain. I wouldn't have ever imagined going to Boston in labor like we did.
I made it pretty quick.
We did, but if we could go back and change anything, I would have maybe gone down a couple weeks early.
Okay.
And stayed down there.
Yep.
Which that wasn't ever mentioned to us. It's not anything that ever crossed our minds. So thinking back, that's maybe something I would have done.
So what you're telling me is this was the most comfortable trip to Boston you've ever taken in your life.
It was the most uncomfortable.
I made it in it was.
Well, to make things worse.
I was in the hospital in under 4 hours. But what the stressful point was, as we kept getting closer, her contractions were getting progressively stronger. And
we came upon
I
an
didn't
accident.
I didn't have a time to, like, I'm an emergency medical technician, but I wasn't comfortable with driving and delivering my own daughter in the vehicle in the potential situation we were facing. So it's like a little nerve-wracking, like knowing when the time was to pull off to get to the hospital. So
Yeah.
if I can't make it to Boston and I go by Dartmouth,
Yeah.
I've got a gap there that I don't.
Where are you going?
Yeah, I've got a gap there where I'm like, hey, I'm not sure where I should call this.
My God.
And then we were literally
Wow.
like
14 miles outside of the city, but that can take a long time in the city of Boston. And we had a car accident. We didn't have one. There was a car accident on the interstate.
Of course, yeah.
And of course, luckily at the time,
the traffic was stopped dead.
I was.
You're kidding me.
No,
Stopped
we're bumper
dead.
to bumper.
And
Oh my God.
Now Boston was great with keeping in contact with us. They called me every 30 minutes to check on us, to see how the contractions were, to make sure I could still feel Macie moving.
Yeah, they knew you were coming.
Yeah,
That's good.
they knew we were coming. They had things that they kept having us check for and do.
Linda
And
would call us on the phone.
And then
She was like
we called her and we were like,
for Boston.
we hit an accident. We're 14 miles from the hospital. These contractions are getting closer. They're getting harder. I don't know how long we're going to be here. So they were going to send a police escort for us. And as we were waiting for the police to come, finally they cleared up the accident and we were able to move.
Got through.
So it was
Yeah, I was
definitely nerve-wracking.
I was not
Wow.
I was not pulling over if somebody pulled up behind me, lights and sirens on. No, that wasn't going to
Jeez.
happen. And I don't really like being that way because I didn't really want to lose my job when I got back. But I wasn't
Jeez.
pulling over at that point. I was kind of nervous.
Oh my God. All right, so you get there.
We get there.
You arrived.
We did.
The funniest thing, her father is
Our parents
He's
were
an
with us
even
through
parent.
the
He has a
entire
lot of-
process for Macie, right from the start of us finding out. My parents and Zach's parents attended every ultrasound,
almost
MRI,
everyone.
every appointment in Boston.
They did go to every appointment.
They
in Boston.
were right there by our sides.
Wow.
So
That's a good outcome. What about the times we went to Quincy Market? That was your first time.
yeah, I had a lot of firsts in Boston.
First child,
Yep.
it sounds like, is
Yeah.
coming.
And they're born with an accent, I'll have you know.
Oh, born with an Macie has a Boston accent?
She does.
Jeez.
She does.
I have to talk to her about that. It's okay.
we are going to have to stop.
So the poor guy in registration, I feel bad for him now.
Her father, I remember this. We pull in the parking garage, and parking is complicated. So for anybody that hasn't been to Boston, in the Longwood Medical area, it's right around the Children's Hospital.
Yep.
Or Brigham and Women's.
I'm familiar with that.
When you pull in there, it's $38 a day to park your car. Didn't know that going into it. But there's a stamp system, so if you're at the hospital, they stamp you, and it's cheaper.
Jeez.
Her father puts her in a wheelchair and sprints across the road with her in the wheelchair. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. Still to this day. Because I've never seen him do that with any of his children.
Yeah. I've never met your father, but I've got an image of you in the wheelchair and your dad pushing you across the road.
It was entertaining.
It was good to see.
So, had to go through the whole registration thing, which I didn't get. Like,
They knew you were coming.
yeah, they knew I was coming. I was
I
in
guess
labor.
they had to prove it was you, but
I just had
the
sat in
signs were
yeah.
pretty clear.
I just sat in a car for
Yeah.
4 hours. So I was not the politest to the registration guy, but I got up where I needed to be, and they, did the whole thing again, the exam and everything. And
How many centimeters were you when we arrived? Do you remember?
I don't remember. It's all a phase. Everything
I think you were
from
if I remember right, I think you were like 4 or 5.
yeah. They and hooked me back up and basically did the same thing as the other nurse. They're like, "Oh wow, you're having really strong contractions." And I was like, "Yep."
You weren't the politest at the moment.
Yeah, I can feel them.
You can be truthful.
And
You're like, that's why I just drove 4 hours in the car.
Couple F-bombs maybe.
I don't know if I went that far, but
Okay.
They knew she was disgruntled.
Yeah.
At the moment.
They now I can remember all I wanted was a drink of water, and they would not let me drink anything because obviously I was having a C-section at some point. And between the frustration of just the whole process and being in labor and the pain, my blood pressure skyrocketed.
Hold on. You forgot a part. So your blood pressure didn't skyrocket until after they told you that you were third in line for the emergency section. That they had several emergent surgeries that needed to take place before she could have her C-section.
Jeez.
Then her blood pressure
went through the roof. And I became top priority.
Went to like 170 something over 100.
I see what you did there. I see what you did. Well, if we need to make this more serious, I'll just raise my blood pressure real quick.
So I'm going to say within 15 minutes, I was in that back room and we were getting ready to have Macie.
Wow.
They didn't even really tell us. It was like kind of awkward. They didn't tell us that we became first in line. Like this nurse popped in and was like, "How are you doing?" And she saw her blood pressure and she walked out. She was gone for like 5 minutes. She comes back in with this white bag, but they'd already given her one. I'm like, "Well, what's this for?" She goes, "That's for your clothes. These are your scrubs." I'm like, "Oh, we're going?" She's like, "You're going." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I had to get changed to go into the C-section with her. And yeah, that was a long day after that.
Holy smokes.
I was up for over 24 hours that day.
It was...
Because our parents couldn't come on the floor with us. Even though they were there. I spent a lot of time in an elevator. So
going back and forth.
So C-section goes through, okay?
It did, for the most part. Macie was stuck under my hip bone. So they had to cut me a little bit more.
They made a larger incision.
Yeah, they did. Had to make a larger incision, and then to get Macie out. And I ended up losing a lot of blood, so they had to put me under for a little while. And they woke me up very quickly so I could see her before she went to the NICU. So I saw her for a total of probably 30 seconds.
No, we did a picture together. Remember that anesthesiologist was on point, by the way.
Wow.
I mean,
so puts you under.
Yep.
I mean, right there
for the C-section.
I'm right.
Brings you right back for a couple seconds, less than a minute, so you could see your child.
Yep.
And then it's like, all right,
picture.
Go back under,
Yeah.
like knock you back out again.
Yeah. So she was awake, and then like
that's wild.
She was playing with their syringes. She had like 3 of them there, and she started going into a little hydraulic shock, I think, because of the loss of blood, and they put her in a feet up position to try to increase her blood pressure again because it was
you don't need your feet.
Yeah, they added a little bit, and then she's like, "I think I'm a little sick to my stomach." And this anesthesiologist had I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but it's a scopolamine patch, I think it is. You get them for cruises.
Okay.
And she slid it right behind her ear, like as soon as she mentioned it, that she was feeling a little sick. She was just on point. And then she took my mask off that I was wearing just to take a photo of us.
Yep, we did our
and then put it back on. Like she had done this before. It was It was smooth. As smooth as it could be.
So then what happens? You go back into, for lack of a better word, hibernation temporarily, right? And what happens to you, Zach?
So the only thing she said to me before they put her back to sleep was, "Do not leave her." So off I went on...
Do not leave who? What happened? Okay. They said to you, don't leave her?
Katie was awake.
Katie said...
Before they put me back
don't
under.
leave her.
Don't leave her.
That's okay.
I said okay.
You've been told.
Yeah.
It makes sense, so yeah, don't...
So now I have... In the room, there wasn't only Katie's doctors, there was a pediatrician and NICU team that was escorting me next door. So our daughter was technically born in the Brigham and Women's and then transferred directly to Boston Children's Hospital via footbridge like you see at Plattsburgh.
Yeah, one of those footbridges over the road.
Exactly.
To a different building.
So yeah, we go over to the different building and up a couple floors, and we're in the NICU, and they do an assessment, and I'm there for a while.
You know, Katie's still like comatose in the last...
Yeah.
She's in recovery mode.
She's in recovery mode.
And you're in the other building.
In the other building, and I gave her pacifier, and nurses were talking amongst themselves, and the doctor comes over to me and kind of gives me like a initial statement of what his observations were, and that she was essentially perfectly healthy child at this point with a known defect that they had researched before we got there. And the quality of skin didn't look like it was going to be an emergent surgery.
Wow.
Which I was geared up for delivery of my child, immediate surgery, same day or next day.
Yeah.
Stabilize, do the correction, and then we're going to be down there for like 2 weeks, was what we had originally thought. And so now I'm going up and down the stairs checking on her, and she's kind of sick because the
Katie.
Yeah, the anesthesia bothered her some.
I couldn't come out of the anesthesia.
They gave her Dilaudid as
made
well.
me so sick.
And made her a little sick.
Yep.
So then I was down talking to the grandparents because at a certain point the grandparents were allowed to come on the floor now, but they can't go to the NICU to see my new daughter. So I'm sending photos to the parents, which are down a couple floors below her, and I'm telling her what's going on with the baby.
Oh my God.
And then finally
You're
gets
running
a room.
between all three spots.
I'm the messenger the whole time, and trying to spend time with my newly born daughter, of course, because she can't get there yet because they won't let her. So then the next morning early, she gets a room, and then the parents can come up, but the daughter's still in the NICU. And then I can bring one parent at a time. So I'm still no sleep for me. I'm escorting everybody up one at a time to meet their granddaughter.
Wow.
And
Here I am, still haven't met my daughter.
Oh my God.
Other
How long
than
has
the
this
30
been?
seconds.
we brought you up on the way over though.
Yep, after.
You
on
saw
my
her
way to
before
the
the
room
grandparents did.
after.
But yeah. And then they came to us and asked us if they wanted to give how do they word that for the lactation?
She had to go through having her own MRI right after. So, obviously, to get her to stay still, they didn't want to put her to sleep at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
So they asked us if we wanted to do formula or some donated breast milk. Then I guess that's how they keep the infants still.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then shortly after that MRI, she came onto our floor.
Yep. She was able to come to our room and be.
Was it 5 days we spent there?
We were there for a total of 7 days.
7 days for delivery. You're right.
Yep.
Yeah, I spent a long time in a hospital bed.
My God.
Very much different than CVPH here. You're here for a day and a half and home.
Wow.
But we were traveling from Boston with a newborn and had,
Yeah, we had a special car
and
seat. Our daughter was not allowed to sit in a normal car seat.
She had to have a lay down
for
bed.
6 months. Like
Wow.
a normal car seat. So she had a lay down bed that went across two. It went across one side of the car and the middle. So she laid sideways in the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Just, they didn't want the pressure on the spine to change.
Wild.
A lot of firsts.
Before the podcast, you had told me, like, I think we were talking about my mom and the early intervention. We were winding back, right? Like, so you finally get Macie home, and now it's time for early intervention, right? And visitation from my mom, and like, there was like something that they would do with a yoga ball or something. Like,
So we had, I don't know exactly what they call it, but she's a physical therapist. Mm-hmm. Her name's Kelly Poissant.
Okay.
And she was from
Adirondack Helping Hands.
Adirondack Helping Hands, that's right, yep. So the early intervention program is a collaboration of organizations in Clinton County, and your mom is like the coordinator. So she reaches out to all these necessary parties to make it all come together. And part of what Macie had to do was physical therapy, so they were trying to strengthen her core to ready her for her surgery.
You gotta have abs, Start them young.
Yeah, so they would roll her into like this yoga ball, and she would literally do like baby planks. And you wouldn't think it's possible, but if you just hold them by the hips and press them into the ball, they'll actually hold them, try to like assist in holding themselves up.
Natural reaction.
And it strengthens her core. And to be honest, they said in Boston that with her core as strong as it was an asset to have her in that kind of shape and muscle strength before doing the correction.
Yeah.
Got it. So this was all like pre-strengthening prep work for her surgery.
Yes.
Yeah, it was great preventative care.
Wow.
So for 5 months, Macie had a lot of physical therapy. We had your mom come in, weekly and do the weight checks and make sure her weight was staying up. And
one other big thing that your mom did was they check the circumference of the head.
Yes.
A lot with kids with spina bifida because they don't want to see any herniation or fluid buildup in and around the brain.
So she checked her,
earlier on,
measured her head weekly, and did all that stuff to keep track of, all the stuff we needed to know prior to her surgery. And then it came time for her surgery.
Man. Shelley Lee, legend.
Yes, she was pretty amazing.
She's on speed dial for a while.
She was.
I hope she listens to this episode. It'll probably bring her a lot of joy.
So came time for Macie surgery. Her surgery was on November 3rd of 2015. And it was definitely nerve-wracking. I have to say that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life, was watch my child go through the intense surgery she had to have. She was in surgery for, it was only supposed to be 2 to 2.5 hours. Multiple hours later, we were like, okay, come on. This was only supposed to be 2.5 hours. Here we are, 4 or 5 hours in. What's going on?
That's when your mind starts thinking crazy things.
When your mind starts thinking like, okay, is it worse than what he thought? She had the best top-notch surgeon, Dr. Benjamin Wharf in Boston, was her neurosurgeon. And he told us that we basically hit the jackpot, is what he told us when we first met with him. He actually said that. He told us that we had the worst case scenario, but the best case scenario.
Wow.
So that was kind of like, okay, what do you mean? We've got the worst case scenario, but the best case scenario. And he told us that, it was definitely a surgery that he wanted to take on, one that he was excited to do. But after her surgery, he told us 100% that it was definitely a surgery that he didn't think was going to be as intense as it was, and that it ended up being even a little bit tricky for him to do. So
you're forgetting about the phone call.
The
phone call. We were in the waiting room, and it was like 5 hours in. And remember, after our previous trips to Boston, I was finally hungry enough. Like, I couldn't do anything at that time. And finally, I got hungry enough to eat, and we went down to grab the blue cheese bison burger that I used to eat all the time. And then all of a sudden, we came back up because we were like looking at our watches. It was the longest 5.5 hours of my life. And they came over, and the phone was there, and they were like, "It's for you." So his resident, who was in surgery, he told him to go out of the OR and call me and Katie and let us know an update. So he did, letting us know that nothing's immediately wrong, but it was more detailed than what they originally had.
That's a classy move.
That was classy.
That's a sign of a professional. Yeah. Wow.
Just to let us know.
To be in the middle of that and recognize the importance of also keeping you in the loop.
Yeah, it was really cool. Call and update
impressive.
The parents. So he kicked out his number one resident to go update us.
Wow.
And he had to go back in and re-scrub. But there was a large team present in the OR.
Damn.
That I didn't know of. I wish I got to thank all of them in one room.
Yeah.
But I only knew because of the medical bills afterwards.
Yeah.
But each department was there.
Wow.
Gastrology, neurology, urology. And if anybody's wondering, the scientific term of what Macie had it's called a lipomyelin-meningocele, which is it's a fancy term for spinal fluid-filled sac.
Yep.
And she is missing part of the process bone on the S2. So it took a team to evaluate what she had and give us the best possible, outcome.
Flash forward today, I've seen little Macie come out and help bell ring for Rotary volunteering, and she looks like she's having a blast, and you guys are doing a great job.
She is.
Yeah.
She's definitely doing really good. She has her times and her moments. In the outcome of Macie's surgery, she could have been a lot worse off than what she is.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to remind ourselves and Macie of that daily. She has 13% loss on her right side for her leg. She will toe in a little bit if she's tired or has played too much. She'll kind of limp a little bit, but it's not too bad. I would say for the most part, the biggest thing is about 2 years ago now, we're going on our second year of having to fully cath. She lost all control of her bladder. She has no function to it. So that's the major outcome from her defect, is losing the control of her bladder.
Neurogenic bladder.
Yeah.
And she also may have
of what she has.
They're not sure, but they call it a floppy bladder. So it doesn't have any tone. So it just kind of moves around and takes shape that ours wouldn't. Mm-hmm. But that enables, different bacteria to form and things like that in places where ours won't, because it doesn't ever fully empty. So that it poses some maintenance issues. So at this point, we're managing the kidney on both sides, especially her right side, because
she has reflux.
When we're half full, our body doesn't tell us it's time to go to the bathroom and urinate. When Macie's half full, her pressure is double that of ours at full capacity. So she refluxes into, think acid reflux. Mm-hmm. Everybody's had that once in life. So it does the same thing into her right kidney. So we're protecting that right kidney for longevity, because you only get a couple shots at a possible bladder augmentation, and you can't do it until they're fully grown, which is sooner with a girl than a boy.
From my limited understanding, though, most cases there's like major impairment to mobility or use of your legs from this type of situation, right? So the fact that she's only, what did you say, 13% of one leg?
Yeah, the abductor, I think, was the
Man,
original.
That is a jackpot.
Yeah.
It is.
From my limited understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, when she's in a room full of children, you don't know she has anything wrong.
No.
Hopefully she doesn't come back and listen to this podcast when she's a teenager and be like, Mom, Dad, I can't believe you told all my friends my bladders.
No, Macie is...
she embraces it. She invites people in.
That's the way she should be, I would say.
She's
I kind of want her to be an
strongest little
ambassador
girl.
A little bit.
I know.
Don't let it be a weakness. Let it be part of you.
And that's what we've tried to teach her. She definitely has her days where she will ask us, like, why can't I pee like you? Or why do I have to pee through a catheter? Will I have to do this forever? When can I pee on a potty? Which she can with the catheter.
But for a long time, we would measure her output.
Yeah, we had to measure her output. So they have medical bags that you, just like at the hospital, that you collect the urine in. And that's how we would do it. So she will have her days, but we always tell her, like, listen, it's no big deal. This is just how you go. And we read her a book a lot. She has become very attached to it. It's called Just Another Way to Go. And it basically tells her and shows her that the way she goes to the bathroom is just another way to go. It doesn't define who you are.
That's awesome.
And it is. It's a really cool book that we got through the Spina Bifida Association. And I show Macie, I'm part of the group Refining Spina Bifida. Mm-hmm. And every year they do a video of all of the different kinds of Spina Bifida and how it affects other people. And I make her watch that every year and show her, like, look at this little boy has Spina Bifida, but he can't walk. He walks with a walker. Or this one walks with crutches. This one's in a wheelchair. This one can't breathe or eat on its own.
It's crazy.
So we show her, like, you're not the only one that has this. And yes, you can't pee on your own, but this is what these kids can't do. So just to let her know, like, your case isn't that bad, Mace. You have bad days and you get down on yourself, but it could be so much worse than what it is. So I think we all do a really good job at trying to keep her positive about it and not let her feel like it's a bad thing. I want Macie to grow up being very comfortable with who she is and shout to the world, I have Spina Bifida, and this is who I am.
Look at how freaking awesome I am at everything I do. Yeah.
So, and
That's awesome.
I have to say, at 4 years old, she's already doing it. She's
Well,
right
she's got
out there.
the
and
Boston accent too.
She
Apparently,
does.
She
So,
does.
yeah.
She definitely
does.
does.
Well, she's very, very fortunate to have parents like you two that went through and continue to go through all that you've done. That's a major investment because, I mean, seems like I know a lot of people that know them well or don't know them well. You know, it just seems like the world we live. The easy way out is not the route you took, but it seems like a lot of people might try to take the easy way out in a variety of ways that could go, right? Like, so she's very, very fortunate. That's for sure. I want to transition a little bit though, because that's not the end of your story of gumption. And you're both looking at me and smiling, but you had mentioned a couple minutes ago about the medical bills.
Yeah.
And like, so there's a whole nother like chapter now, right? Macie's growing up. You're still raising Macie. You're teaching her all these great lessons, but there's also the layer of like, well, shit, I got to make money. I got to pay these bills,
Right.
and I got to find fulfillment for myself in a job. Right. So how, I guess you know where I'm going with this, but I want to tee this up the right way. I'm just going to come out and say it. You guys are kicking ass with your own business that you own, Spar-Kil-Kleen, and I admire that like you wouldn't believe. And so tell me the backstory of Spar-Kil-Kleen and tell me each of your stories sort of leading up to the decision to run your own business, because you weren't. That's why I asked the question earlier in the podcast of what you were doing career-wise, because you clearly, this was not your thing going into this whole experience.
Right. So, do you want me to start or do you want to?
You can.
Okay. So, at a young age, before I was 18 years old, my father was in the military, and when he did his, I think, second tour overseas during like Operation Enduring Freedom and Southern Watch, he came home and he joined the fire department. And I watched him as a kid. And I had the opportunity to become a fire explorer. And as soon as I turned 18 years old, I became an active firefighter in a local department, which is Dannemora. Became an emergency medical technician and started setting myself up for a career in public service. Progressively moved forward into managing a security company, North Country Community College. Did that for like 4.5 years, working right underneath the director of campus and student life. Threw around the idea of obtaining a degree, but don't know why I passed, but I did. I found myself at the home of the 1980 Winter Olympics, Federal Correctional Institution at Raybrook, New York. And then after that, you know, I was like, well, this is what I do, right? Your public service. But when this took place, I knew I needed flexibility. And on the side, I had always cleaned cars for guys that I worked with, you know, cars and boats. And then
You did detailing work. Is
auto
what you
and
mean.
boat
Yeah.
detailing.
Yeah.
It was legitimate. It was through the county, had a DBA and everything. It was Spar-Kil-Kleen Detailing. And that was the first company that I started in 2010. And my family started a cleaning company in 1981 called Spar-Kil-Kleen, where they did residential and commercial cleaning, not so much of the detailing. So it was an easy transition for me to explore that option. And we started in the residential side and slowly, you know, exposed ourselves to the commercial market once we acquired equipment, and I purchased some equipment. And you know, vehicles, and got everything going. But it was a big decision to leave behind what I had worked up to over the years. And same thing for you. I mean, I'll let you have your side now. I mean, you started a little bit differently from where you ended up.
Yep. I was a dental assistant, which I absolutely loved. Call me crazy. Zach thinks I'm insane because I enjoyed being in people's mouths.
Oh
But
man, if I have one thing that just like nails on a chalkboard for me, it's that GD like spinning drill sound thing from the dentist office. Oh, I can't handle it. When I was a little kid, I had a lot of cavities, and shame on me, but all my adult teeth are clean as could be. But I had a lot of cavities as a kid, so I had to go through that, and maybe it was for the better because I got rid of all the junk baby teeth that I had, and then learned my lesson, and haven't had to experience that in a long time. But going to the dentist is tough for me. Going to the dentist is really tough for me.
I was an EMT, so I'm good with like the whole like body fluids and stuff like that. But I don't know what it is, but it's like that stuff never stays in your mouth when you're at the dentist. I own a cleaning company, and I put my hands in places people wish they never had to put their hands. But it's just, and I was like an EMT. I mean, you never know what you're walking into, right? But it's just the whole, everybody like grinding on saliva, teeth pieces flying. She does it way better than I do.
And I grind my teeth at night when I'm stressed.
Yeah.
So I also have that layer of why I hate
The dentist.
people poking at my teeth. They're sensitive.
well,
Anyhow, sorry, I totally derailed your previous career here, but it's very admirable. You were dental assistant.
Are you going to start from the beginning? You should start from the beginning. Like right out of high school.
Oh, right from high school.
Yeah, give them a little glimpse of Katie.
Out of high school, I started working at CV Tech. I was a one-on-one there for 3 years, and then when they had all of their cuts, I fell into that, so I got laid off. And at that time, I was like, okay, what am I going to do with my life? I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up yet. So college was kind of like, why am I going to start if I don't know what I want to do? So I kind of put that on the back burner. And then I was kind of like thinking, I kind of like the dental field. So I looked into that, and I found a class, a course that I could take to become certified. So I started classes, and I took that and became a certified dental assistant. I landed a job with High Peaks Dental, and I worked there for 5 years, maybe 6 years. Absolutely loved it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It was a great place to work, great people to work for. I agree. They taught me a lot. Dr. Keldon and Dr. O'Connor were definitely my mentors. I have to say that they shaped me into somewhat of the person that I am today.
Nice.
By watching them run their business and how they worked, and like I said, always pushing us to have a 10-year plan and knocking those things off of what our plans were and accomplishing them. So then when I found out I was pregnant for Macie, I was offered a position at the pediatric office for the lead assistant, making a lot more money than I was. Very
Bingo.
Hard decision.
There you go.
Yes.
That's hard, but yeah.
It was very hard decision because I wasn't only leaving a job, I was leaving my family. Because when I worked at High Peaks Dental, it wasn't just your job, it was your family.
Very family-oriented organization.
So, and not just for me, but they accepted your entire family.
I know what that's like. That's hard. That's a hard decision.
It
Like every 4th of July, there was no question of what you were doing.
Yeah.
You were with
You're
High Peaks
with the
family.
High Peaks crew over at Airborne.
Wow.
Or Thursday? We used to go to Iris's.
Yep. So it was a very hard decision, but I knew I was pregnant. I knew I was bringing a child into the world, and at that point, it was just a no-brainer. It was a lot more money and a higher position, so that's what I did.
It was professional development.
So I started working at the pediatric office, and I worked there for 7 months. And then I was taken out of work due to I developed high blood pressure during the pregnancy. Obviously, I wasn't stressed at all.
Pretty routine pregnancy. That's what I heard.
So they took me out of work, and they at that point, after we had Macie, I was told by her pediatrician in Boston, I chose to breastfeed Macie. She would not take a bottle, and she was losing weight. So they told us, like, listen, she can't go to daycare. She can't afford to lose any more weight. You need to be home with her. You really can't go back to work.
Wow.
So at that time, Zack and I kind of looked at, like, what do we need to do for the future? This isn't a situation that's going to go away. This is for life. So at that point, like Zack said, he was doing the detailing part of the business, and we just kind of brought it to where it is today, and decided this is definitely, a better family choice and decision. And we can, in the beginning, we started out slow, and we could do what we needed to for Macie. But Macie's doing 1,000 times better and doesn't need the attention or the, what would you call it?
Extra support and care.
Right. She doesn't need the extra support now that she did when she was an infant.
Yeah.
So
She's pretty independent.
she is.
And what our parents and grandparents have the opportunity to do with her is great as well. Because without that support network, I don't think we'd be able to make the decisions we've made.
No, definitely not. Like I said earlier, our parents have always stood right by our side. And if Macie's not with us, she's with one of our parents. And they're caring for her and doing her needs and all of her stuff that she needs, to get through the day. So it's a lot easier to, be gone to work and know that she's with one of our parents and being taken care of and having exactly what she needs to be done on time.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that's how we ended up bringing Spar-Kil-Kleen to the North Country.
it's freaking wild, man. Look at that story. Jeez.
I never heard it from sitting on this side before because I'm always the one doing the talking. But we finally got this one talking tonight.
This is excellent. Well, I'm super impressed with you guys and your story. So I want to ask you, now that you're in it, you've been doing this business for a few years now. How many years now?
So essentially 2010, but we relaunched.
Oh, wow.
We formed the partnership in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
My, so yeah, this
Technically,
is
right? No,
you're not. This is not a new business anymore. You guys have been at this for a while.
I think it was 15. It was 2015 we formed the partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got you do commercial and residential.
We do.
You guys you're hiring people. You're growing. Yeah. What is the hardest part about running your business?
So as far as we always have this thing, like Katie and I, we have a different management model, I guess. She works in the business, and not to say that I don't, because when I show up, I still perform the work. But Katie really does focus in the business, and I work on the business, and in the future, a little bit. So I'm more of the sales guy and the innovation and technical stuff, and she keeps everything moving.
Thanks to Katie, you can go play and explore with new ideas.
Pretty much.
And she keeps the ship running.
Yeah, and I don't give her enough credit, I don't think, sometimes.
She's shaking her head. The people listening, you can't. She's like, that was great.
But yeah, she keeps everything going, and then I guess the hardest part I think in the beginning was with limited business exposure. Like when I would go down in the summer, my dad's parents started this company, like I said, in 1981, and my dad used to teach at West Point, not as a professor or anything. He was just a firearms instructor, and that's what he used to do for his reserves. and in the National Guard. But I would get exposure to the company every time we would go back to his family.
Yeah.
So I got to see it. I went out and worked with him, and got to see the company firsthand. So I knew what I was getting into, but I didn't ever see the need for marketing. You don't have to be a marketing major. You don't have to be an accountant, but you have to know a little bit about each one of those things to put it all together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning, before you can afford an accountant or you can realize how to use marketing material and have a business model and all those things, you got to teach yourself all those things, which is something that's completely opposite of being public service, because you're taught to be humble and introvert.
Mm-hmm.
You don't talk about what you do, right? You can't talk about your patients. You can't talk about what you do at work. You just keep quiet about it and do your job.
Yeah.
Well, this is exactly the opposite, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's. I found a different way to give back to the community by getting involved with ADKYP and genuinely enjoy it. Doing volunteer projects and stuff like that.
What's the hardest part for running the business for you?
I would have to say sometimes trying to balance everything. Just like personal life and business life. I would say can be the hardest if you don't do it. You have to balance. And then just with getting started, the unknown of where is this going to go? Are we going to make it? Are we going to, succeed?
You've got some experience with conquering the unknown, though.
Exactly. And
I think it's the hunt or the chase.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite part about my job.
I think that's what it's the unknown. It's the
unknown.
It's you're in charge of your own destiny. Yeah. You really are.
Yeah. And I have to say, between Zack and I, we're both pretty determined people. And when we set our mind to something, it's going to get done.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't always get done the way it's supposed to, but it will eventually get there.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of younger professionals probably listening to this podcast episode, and I bet you 3/4 of them are, whether they openly admit it or not, wishing or thinking about starting a business of their own. I feel like that's just a very common theme amongst younger professionals at this point. Anyone, 30s down to high school, I feel like that's what our generation wants to do. We want to own our own business. We want to be in charge of our own destiny. What kind of advice, I'll ask each of you, would you give to a young professional listening when it comes to starting and running your own business?
Well, I'd say, first of all, that not because I'm on the board of ADKYP, of course, but I think Plattsburgh is a great location to select. 26th in the nation as far as micropolitan areas to embrace economic strength and growth.
That's pretty legit. Mm-hmm. We are in a higher ranking than we were, I believe it was a year or two ago. A year or two ago, it was in the 50s, I think. Now it's number 27 in the entire United States.
Yeah, I mean, Bozeman's number one.
Yeah.
But Bozeman's going to have a population that's going to put it in a different bracket. I don't think it's going to contend as
Not micropolitan anymore.
No.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're kind of a suburb of Montreal.
That's exactly what we are. When I describe where I live when I'm out on vacation and I'm way out of our zone, because people don't truly understand the geography of New York.
Right.
They're like, oh, upstate. Yeah, Poughkeepsie? No, not at all.
Way up.
Way up. And I just started, it clicked for me because Gary Douglas at the Chamber always says this, suburb of U.S., where Montreal's U.S. suburb. So I literally start saying that to people and they're like, oh, I understand where you are now.
Yeah.
But it's true. If you take any major city in the United States and you draw the mileage out for the radius of what their suburbs are considered, any major city, we are within that same distance of Montreal. Yeah. We are truly a suburb. They're U.S. suburb, but we are a suburb of Montreal. So, yeah, a little digression, but...
Manufacturing is booming here, too. But, yeah, anything... I would tell somebody that was about to start a company, I would say, have fun with it, Make sure you do your homework, and one thing I see a lot of people do is they want to start a company on loans, and I don't think that's the best way to do it, because that's just to break even with your payment, you have to make that much every month just to break even.
Interesting.
So the least amount of output for the most amount of input, I guess, if you want to think of it that way.
Yeah. So you're a big advocate of grassroots growth.
Yeah.
Live within your means and just do what you got to do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants to
hit it big.
It's okay to have goals.
Yeah.
But, keep them within, attainable goals in the beginning, especially. Take steps. Crawl, walk, run.
What would you say, Katie?
I would say to take your plans and run with them. It's definitely nerve-wracking. It's hard. It can be frustrating. And if you fail, you fail. But you'll never know unless you try. So just go for it.
Failure doesn't
best.
mean your idea is gone either.
That's right.
No, we have every company, I think, has wins and failures. Sometimes daily, weekly, monthly. It just depends.
You're going to have highs and you're going to have lows.
And if you do it with your spouse, you got to separate work and home.
I always wondered that.
That's a complexity.
I was like,
it is.
You guys are just working all. I keep saying you guys. You both are working all the time.
She does the balancing better than I do, because I have my daughter, which is the best thing that ever happened to us, I think. We have our puppy.
Yes.
Which is our daughter's
God,
first.
This puppy, man. Jeez, it's like they just bottled up cute, in a bottle and then it produced this puppy. It's
but then we have
wow.
the business baby. So it becomes almost like another child.
It does.
Yeah.
You're always wanting to work on it, even when you're at home, and sometimes your head's not in the right place. You gotta check yourself a little bit, because you can work yourself too much.
Yeah, you can.
See how she did that? See that right there?
The gumption in this story is just overflowing. It's like the whole Spar-Kil-Kleen business has really been shaped by your experience through this whole thing. I mean, would you be both co-owning and running Spar-Kil-Kleen if you didn't have your daughter?
I feel like just because of who Zack and I are, we would have our own business in some way.
Interesting. Okay.
Would it have necessarily been a cleaning company? Maybe not.
He's shaking his head. Yes.
Zack is saying yes. I feel like we definitely would have had some kind of business. So,
I think, obviously, I was working in corrections, and if you talk to most, correction officers, firefighters, and cops, they all seem to have a side hustle,
Yep.
And I think it's just the nature of the job, because sometimes the job doesn't give you a whole lot of self-satisfaction. So there's a lot of carpenters out there, a lot of plumbers out there,
Yep.
Skilled labor trades are popular, but a lot of us have a side business, and what better side business than cleaning, right? I mean, it goes from
you're
super
already
bad
doing
to
the cars,
super awesome, when you're done with it and you can see the work that you performed. And the boats and the cars was an easy thing for me.
Yeah.
Because I had a passion for the process, And I don't know, I always enjoyed cleaning. It takes a certain person and attention to detail to do it.
It does.
There's one other question I'd like to ask you about Spar-Kil-Kleen.
Yeah, sure.
But it's sort of this like backdrop of like you guys just, I mean, you're working your tails off, but then you somehow managed, while also raising your daughter and having all these other commitments in your life, you've managed to leverage your business's resources towards volunteerism and community service also. where did that come from? I mean, a lot of businesses in our region are also very philanthropic, and they give their time and their money, but it seems like you guys put that as like a major priority of your business. Where did that come from? And yeah, talk about that.
I would say for me, where that came from, when we had Macie, we had a lot of people reach out to us, asking us if they could start a GoFundMe page or do benefit dinners. Zack and I are very humble people, so we kindly declined that. But our family...
You two humble? No.
Our families and our friends came together and donated money and food and did what they could for us for, a couple of months after Macie came home. And that's being in that position and being that person that needed that help. Zack and I would have never been able to make it without the help of our family and our friends. So being on the end of somebody that needed to receive that, I just feel like if I can give back in any way, I would like to. So if there is a volunteer job or somebody that's in need or something that we can do to give back to the community, I'm always on top of doing it. That's always going to be my first top priority. If I can give back, I'm going to. And I think for Zack, it also falls into that category, but he also did a lot of volunteer firefighting. So I think that's where he comes in, and I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'd set myself up for a career in public service, but being in the fire department at like 18 years old, when you start that young, it almost becomes automatic. And I'm a firm believer in, I think everybody in this country should either serve their country in a way. If the military is not for you, it's not for you. I almost went in the military. The reason I didn't go in the military is because I met her when I was 17. Or actually, 15. I was going to enlist at 17, and I asked her if she would kindly go with me. And she said she would, but I could tell she didn't want to. So I found a different way to try to serve, I guess. And, the fire department and working my way up into a public service career was that. But when you're having, a family dinner at your house and a structure fire and ambulance call goes out, you quietly stand up and you leave and you go take care of it because I feel like it's your obligation. Obviously, if it's a once a year thing, there's other people who are going to go. But that's somebody's grandmother. That's somebody's mother. It's somebody's baby.
Yeah.
You should show up, right? You feel like you're obligated. And that feeling kind of left when I transitioned, So the transition for me was a little bit more difficult because that sense of purpose wasn't there. Although I was growing a company, it was completely different from, being held to a higher standard or, having a call of duty to the community or serving a community.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I was fulfilling that. There was definitely a void there. So I tried to find a way to give back.
That was the day. I remember this vividly. I don't remember a lot of moments very vividly. And I'm not trying to boost you guys up more than you need to, babe. But when I was at Twisted Carrot and we had that 80 KYP event.
Yeah.
And we really connected as potential friends and network and all of that. And we talked about Rotary.
It was a good turnout.
That was the moment that I vividly remember it clicking for me that you two were very, very serious about giving back to your community. And I don't know how to describe this, but you can tell, oftentimes if someone says, yeah, I want to volunteer, I want to give my time, it's kind of what's your MO, right? I value that, and I appreciate that you want to give your time. Let's do it, let's really do it. But the number of times I've had that experience with somebody, and then it's something comes up and you call them, or and no, yeah, where are you? You know, and I know we're all busy and all that sort of thing, but for whatever reason, that moment really sticks out to me that I could tell I don't know how to pinpoint it, what it was, but I can tell, and I'm sure you both can tell when someone's serious about giving back.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the moment I knew we were going to be friends.
Yeah, I knew pretty early on that we had a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, you can just feel it with certain people.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And actually, for a while, that pop-up at Twisted Carrot, before the pop-up, Twisted Carrot was closed. And I went and cleaned the windows and the granite out front before our pop-up. Just 'cause.
No kidding.
Yeah. I was working in the area and I was just like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Just because I wanted them to look good and our organization to have a,
Yeah.
A way
great
to say
event.
thank you,
Mm-hmm.
For letting us hold the event there. Because, I mean, essentially we overran their dining space that evening.
Yeah, they couldn't have too many actual dinner spots because we took over. Yeah.
It was a small thank you, really.
Yeah.
Is all it was.
Well, man, this has been a great conversation. I'm sure we'll talk more offline about all of this because this has been good. But I'd like to pivot towards the close of this sucker. And you know what's coming. I'm about to hit you with
I'm a listener, so I know a little bit about what's coming.
I'm hitting you with it, and I'm hitting you both with it. You each are responsible for your own answers. The infamous Stories of Gumption podcast rapid fire section. Are you ready?
I guess.
Well, I'm hamming this up, but I think I bet you guys are going to give me some good answers here. Katie first for the first question, but I'm going to read the question first. Number 1, what's your favorite movie and why?
Oh, this is a funny one. Okay. So my ultimate favorite movie that I could watch over and over again is Pretty Woman. Why? Because
Nice.
Julia Roberts is one of my favorite actresses. And I don't know her personally, obviously, but I feel like in every movie she plays in, she's just a very strong character. And I like that. So that's my favorite movie.
I can definitely appreciate that answer. What about you? You got a good movie over there?
Man, there's a lot of good movies out there. Obviously every firefighting movie I've ever watched has got to be my favorite for a while. So typical backdraft, ladder 49. But if I had to pick, I would say I just watched a movie. It was called Charged. It's about a gentleman by the name of Eduardo Garcia, and
Charged.
yeah.
The heck is Charged?
So he's on a backcountry hunting trip and came up on a deceased bear and thought that, well, it's unfortunate this bear went to waste and went to go touch it to cape it out. And
Yep.
when he did, he was electrocuted because the bear had, I guess, bit a electrical box in the middle of, like, power lines in the middle of the backcountry. And it took a lot of gumption to get to where he is today.
Wow. It's like his recovery story, basically.
It's amazing.
Wow.
Watch it. It's on
Charged.
what is that? Prime? If
Amazon
you have Prime, it's on there.
Okay. I like it. Question number 2. Zach, you're first this time. What's a piece of advice that you would give to your 18-year-old self if you could go back? Knowing what you know now, what was a piece of advice you'd give to your 18-year-old self?
There's a lot of advice I'd give myself, to be honest.
You'd sit down with a drink and talk for 3 hours, right?
I'd sit down and talk about it, but one piece of advice would say is, slow down, travel more.
Ah, interesting.
I was pretty big into like adrenaline junkie type stuff when I was a kid, and if I would have just slowed down a little bit, I think it would have helped.
I like it. Katie?
I agree with Zach. I'd say there's a lot that I would tell myself. But one of the main things is just to hold on tight because nothing is going to go as planned. But it's all going to work out in the end. So it's okay.
I like that. Question number 3. You notice the pattern here. Katie, you're first. Okay. If you could go back and meet one historical figure, any historical figure, who would you want to meet, and why would you want to meet that particular person?
Mine would be Princess Diana.
Oh, interesting. Why?
One, I have a high interest in the royal family. But she was a woman that had an amazing drive to give. And she was a very careless woman. And she always did random acts of kindness with no expectation of receiving anything back. And as we discussed, I highly believe in that. So
yeah,
definitely her.
Slight I respect that answer also, but what slight digression, have you ever had a chance to go to London? Like, it sounds like that's something
I haven't, but I definitely will someday.
You need to do that. Yeah.
It's on our list.
Yeah.
It's on my list.
I was very, very lucky, privileged, fortunate, all those words and more to be able to go to London with my wife, Lauren. Was it last year? Maybe a year and a half ago. But some sponsored trip, and we got to go for a lot less than if you just went on your own. But we saw the crown jewels. I could see that she's like, oh man, we saw the London Tower, we saw all that cool stuff. Yeah, you gotta go. When we went, we had to pay full price for a lot of things, but we got a couple things taken care of. But the flight when we went round trip, $400 something. So you keep your eyes out. Like,
that's awesome.
It's actually cheaper depending on when you go, if you can plan it out. To go to Europe sometimes, go to London, than freaking driving to Maine or going out west so
yeah,
you should do it.
definitely
I like it.
in my plans for the future.
The food? Oh, fish and chips with a Guinness, man. I know Guinness is not a London beer, but like you have to have Guinness in the United Kingdom because on tap there, Guinness, it tastes way better than any of the crap we have here.
Really?
Because it's the authentic thing. They haven't put all these preservatives in it to get it overseas and let it have a good shelf life in America, because that's what Americans care about is shelf life.
Yep.
And profits. Over there, they just make Guinness to taste good. Anyhow, I digress. Princess Diana. I like that answer. What about you? Zach, which historical figure would you go back and meet if you could, and why?
There's a lot of them, but the one that stands out the most to me, I think, would be Theodore or Teddy Roosevelt.
Somehow I knew you were going to say that. I don't know why. If it's because you have a beard right now, and I'm looking at you, and I'm like, he's going to say freaking Teddy Roosevelt.
Well, no, it's for me. The reason why is he laid the foundational blocks of the American conservation model.
Yeah,
and obviously, being a BHA member and volunteer coordinator for them is, I believe highly in conservation and the use of public lands. And although he gets the most credit, there's a lot of other great presidents.
Sure.
Fun fact: Barack Obama actually put aside the most federal land of any president.
I actually knew that.
Yeah. It surprised me when I read it. To be honest,
I'm glad he did that. I said you got a beard, but I should clarify my statement. I was really focusing on your T-shirt, which is very outdoorsy, and Theodore had a bomb mustache, and you that is a sweet shirt. It's too bad we can't put that in the podcast somehow, but he's got a pretty sweet outdoorsy T-shirt. It just characterizes his whole persona in this moment, Teddy. Yeah.
I need to do the mustache. She's not going to.
This is supposed to be rapid fire, and it's like the biggest digression in the whole episode. But anyhow. Okay.
Fire away.
Question number 4.
I'll behave.
I'm going back to Zack now first. If you can only have one more meal, that's it. You get one more. That's it. It's kind of morbid, but I'm basically asking you what your favorite meal is ever.
3-course or single course?
You can have 3-course. Have fun with this question, but you only get one more. So tell me what it's going to be.
Okay, I would guess let's see, shepherd's pie, the way my grandmother used to make it, which is unique in itself. I've been told it's a collaboration of Irish and French. They call it a pâté chinois, I guess, up in Montreal, which is a translation of Chinese pie.
Look at this cultured dude over here, man.
But she's over here shaking her head. But yeah, my grandmother made it with potatoes, peas, carrots, ground meat, but she put a pie crust on top of it.
Ooh, there you
So
go.
it's a little different. It's very good. She makes it with cream corn too, and triple berry scone on the end. It's probably one of my favorite things.
That does sound good. Geez, you know how to make that?
Yeah, all of it.
Oh man, I'm coming
I'm
over.
a closet cook.
I'm coming over sometime, and you're making that for
Closet cook.
me.
Ask Katie. How was our weekends, babe?
He loves to bake.
Really?
Yeah.
Here we go on another digression, Zach. Jeez.
I told you I was going to try to behave. She did it.
I love to cook, but I can't bake at all. Like, I lose excitement and focus when you have to get super precise with all the measurements. I just want to throw stuff in and, like, feel it. You know, I want to just be in the moment and just, like, cook and let it be what it's going to be, and it doesn't have to be the same every time. Baking, everything I've tried to bake comes out terrible. Then Lauren, my wife, gets involved, and everything comes out amazing. She's like the best baker I've ever met.
That's good. It's a compliment.
It balances.
Yeah, it balances, man.
Yeah.
It does. My last meal. I would have to say chicken Alfredo and blueberry pie.
Chicken Alfredo.
I knew she was going to say chicken Alfredo.
You did?
Yeah.
It's like you're
Knew it.
married or something.
That's
Yeah, I
what
know.
I order every time we go
Okay.
out.
All right. Can I take another digression?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is so good. Do you ever watch The Office? Did you ever watch The Office?
I have.
I've seen it.
Well, whether you've seen it or not, and all the Office fans listening are going to love this moment, but every time I think of chicken Alfredo, I always think of there's an episode where Michael Scott, the Steve Carell character, he's the boss of the branch, right? He thinks it's a great idea to put together a charity 5K for the office, and he makes everybody run. Everybody's got to run, but he like tees it up like he's gonna win it, right? And so him and Dwight, like the kind of dorky guy in the office, everybody knows Dwight who's watched the show. They think it's a great idea for him to carb load, literally like 5 minutes before the 5K, and he eats an entire like tray of chicken Alfredo.
That's coming out.
So you can see where this goes, but like every time I think of chicken Alfredo, so tasty, by the way. I respect your choice, but it's not a good carb load.
No. He needs to look up the
He
definition
takes
of
off.
backloading.
He takes off for the 5K, and he's way out in front of everybody, and he's just like, "Oh, I'm so fast, and then it like shows him like laying on the ground crying later, and people are passing him, just walking. So
All good things must come to an end.
all good things must come to an end.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to digress with this last question. Rapid fire, the last one. You ready?
Ready.
This is my favorite question in the entire podcast. All the episodes I've done, I love asking this of everybody. If we could put together a 3-person board of directors to guide and mentor you through the rest of your life, they can be alive, deceased, famous or not, but who would you pick to be your personal 3 board of directors, and why?
Okay. So my first one would be my grandmother. She was a very strong, smart, and talented woman, and she always seemed to have the right answer. She taught me a lot, so definitely her. My second one would be Dr. William Calden, who I spoke about earlier.
Yep.
Like I said, I feel like he really formed me into part of the person I am today and the direction I go with our business. He pushed me to do things that I wouldn't have normally done, or, like I said, come up with a 10-year plan, because that was definitely not anything that I wanted to think about. I want to live in the future. Why, or now, the present. Why do I want to plan for 10 years from now?
Yeah.
So definitely him, because he has taught me a lot. He's written multiple books, and is a really well put together business owner himself. So my third, well, he's kind of already on my board, but I would have to say definitely Zack, because he pushes me to be a better person, to step out of my comfort zone, kind of like doing this podcast. And he shows me different things every day. His will for wanting to run a business and do better being a business owner, making it grow, and just all around makes me want to be a better person. So I would have to say those are my 3 people.
That's an impressive board of directors. Well chosen. Good reasons, too. I like it. Zack, it's your turn, buddy.
So this was kind of a hard question for me, because there's a lot of people, like you said, alive, deceased, famous or not.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you always think when you're young, I always appreciated family time. But I guess as I got older, I found an interest in like my ancestry. So I wish I could go back and ask a lot of my family members some questions I never had the opportunity to, or the intelligence to, or, emotional maturity, if you will, to ask those questions when I was younger, because I can't ask them anymore. But one person that had a good impact on who I am, I think, it would be my grandfather, Jack Murphy. Real name was John. It's my mom's father. Spent a lot of time together growing up. He taught me to golf. And he's just a great support network. He's also a salesman who makes me the face-to-face, business owner I am today. I still choose to avoid, email communication and walk up and shake a hand if possible. And the second person I think would be, his name's Pierre Bellon. He's the owner of Sodexo, which I don't know.
Interesting.
If you're not in our segment, you probably won't know what that is, but that's it. It's an integrated facilities management company.
I used to if it's the same Sodexo I'm thinking of, and maybe I'm off, but we used to contract when I was a camp director with Sodexo.
It's possible, because they are in
for our kitchen facilities.
Yes. Yeah. Facilities and food service.
Food service
reception
segment.
Concierge, security.
Yep.
They're
They would provide 2 trained, certified, medical to food skill chefs for our summer camp. Yeah, that's it. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I admire their ability to articulate within the, service industry, and then be as successful as they are. They're much larger than I ever anticipate to be, but it's a goal, right?
Yeah.
But I still want to keep that family-run business touch, if you will. But then obviously my support network, because without it, it's hard to pick just one person, but I would say that my wife is probably the biggest supporter I have, because if you truly do marry your best friend, it's hard to be in business with anybody else other than your best friend, right?
Yeah. You gotta spend so much freaking time together.
You have to love each other. You truly do. And that's the thing. Everybody always says that about us, because we did meet when we were 15 years old. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are like, how do you do that? How do you work together?
Yeah.
You have to.
I think we're just so used to being together than we are
apart.
Being apart.
Yeah.
Don't go to bed angry. Get it done.
No, you're right.
Get it done.
I met my wife Lauren when we were both in high school. She was 15. Yeah. I was a little older, but yeah. But no, I know I can actually relate exactly what you're talking about. It's also interesting to draw slight parallels between your board of directors. You both chose each other as number 3. You both chose a professional mentor, similar to what the roles you both have taken in your company. You took your mentor from High Peaks Dental, which is very similar to what you're doing for Spar-Kil-Kleen, and you taking the big picture guy from Sodexo, which is very similar to what you're doing, and then you both chose a grandparent.
Yeah, I think
it's like you are married or something, or you're best friends at the same time. It's like you're linked. That's awesome.
It's important to not forget where you came from.
Yeah.
And where you're going, I think. And then the support system along the way. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize. She wouldn't tell me hers before we got here today, I asked her. She
Well
wouldn't
done.
tell me.
Well done. Well, you did phenomenal. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This has been... I have a lot of favorites from doing this, but this might be up there. This might be one of them. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed this conversation. I want to give you each an opportunity to do a 30-second send-off message to the listeners if you have one. You have something you'd like to say? It's like a...
Yeah, sure. I mean...
Even after all you guys do, I give you 30 seconds to let people know how they can get in touch with you for your business.
Yeah, sure. You can find us on Facebook at Spar-Kil-Kleen, no hyphens, or www.spar-kil-kleen. And I guess, where else? Instagram? Mm-hmm. Find us on Instagram at Spar-Kil-Kleen. But on a serious note, I don't know. What else? You got anything else to add?
I'd like to thank our family, for one, for being supportive of our decision to own our own business and helping us grow to where we are today. Our amazing staff, we wouldn't be able to be here tonight without them, and all of the help that they give us. And I'd like to thank all of our clients, they know who they are, for trusting us with their facilities, their home, and letting us provide them with the best service that we can give them.
Don't forget about 80KYP.
Yes, the amazing family of 80KYP that we have brought on to our lives.
I may be retired, but I'm like the grandpa of 80KYP right now. I'm proud to be.
Definitely amazing group. You should come out to our next event.
Yeah. Actually, it's coming up. Speed Networking. Check out 80KYP on their Facebook page. That's the best way to go.
Yeah.
Adirondack Young Professionals. Well, kudos to you both. You've gone through quite a bit, and you've turned it into quite a bit of success, I would say. So, with that...
Thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate it. you know me, I like to talk anytime. So
yeah.
With or without a microphone, I guess.
I love it. Hey, and for all the listeners, thanks for hanging in there. 3 people only hanging out with 2 microphones here. I got to get a third microphone and get this set up a little bit better. But thanks for listening in. This has been another episode of the Stories of Gumption podcast, conversations with entrepreneurs, creative thinkers, and just in my opinion, really, really impressive people. Thanks again. Take care.